So from today's session onwards, we are going to see how we can work with the different type of WebDriver commands. Because so far we have seen like how we can identify the elements on the web applications. So once we identify the web elements, so the next thing is we need to perform the actions. So the different elements are having different type of actions. So to perform the actions, WebDriver is provided different type of functions or methods by which we can perform the operations. Okay, so let's see what are those commands are available. So mainly we have get commands. So we categorize into multiple types. We can call them as get commands. We can also call them as methods. Okay, methods or functions, whatever is get commands. And then second category is conditional commands. Conditional commands. And the third category is browser commands. And then navigational commands. And finally, we have a wait commands. So these are the 5 categories of commands which are provided by Selenium WebDriver. And each category, there are multiple commands are available. So I'll show you how to use those commands practically and where to use them. And apart from that, apart from discussing these commands, I will also show you how to interact with the different type of elements, like how to interact with the input box or text box and what are all validations we can do on that. And then how we can interact with the radio button, check boxes, drop down buttons, or links, images. There are different type of elements we can see on the web page. So how we can interact with those elements, like how we can perform the different actions on those elements. I will also discuss them parallelly along with these commands. Okay. So first let us start with the get command. So what are the different commands are available under get? Because these commands will basically called as a getting the information, like getting the title of the page or getting the URL of the page or getting the HTML of the page. So for that we use this command. So we can simply say get commands. Okay. So what are the commands are available? So we, instead of calling get commands, we can simply call them as uh, browsers browser specific commands. Okay, I can say application specific commands like application title, application URL, application page source, right? We can call them as application related commands. Because in Selenium with Java, we can call them as a get command because all the commands will start with the get keyword. But here we don't have such keyword. So we can directly say title, current URL, page source, like that. So we can call it as an application commands. So application commands, conditional commands, browser commands, navigational commands, and wait commands. So these are the totally 5 types of commands we have. Now we'll see what is application specific commands. The first type is application specific commands. What are they? The first one is a title. And all these commands we can directly access through driver instance or driver object. So title. And the second one is current underscore URL. The third command is page underscore source. But when you learn Selenium Java, so where we have a different method like get title, get current URL, get page source. The same thing here, we have only title, current URL, page source. These are not methods actually. And they are the keywords or which are actually variables, built-in variables, which are already available in driver instance. So we can dynamically get the title of the page, URL of the page, and source content of the page. So I'll show you how to use them practically. So let's go to PyCharm and see how we can work with this application specific commands. Go to PyCharm and let's create new directory today. I say day 15. So inside this, I'm just creating a new class, new Python file. I'll name it as app commands. Application commands, instance app commands. So this is the Python file which is created. So as usual, first we need to import the WebDriver module and then we have to import the service. So these two packages which we have to specify. And now we need to create a service object and driver instance. So in the service object, we have to specify the location of the driver. And this is our service object. And after that, what is the next step is we need to create the driver object. So how to create driver equal to WebDriver dot currently I'm taking Chrome browser. So here, don't forget to pass this service object because this needs a driver location. So this is a setup part. And once this statement is launched our browser, then we need to open the application URL. So how to open the application URL? So we have a method called driver.get. So this is the actual method. Get is a method. So here we can pass the application URL. So whichever application you want to open, you can just pass the application URL inside this get method. And this will basically open this application on the browser. And we can say this is also comes under this application, but this is actual method, not a command. Suppose as soon as you launch this application, I want to find the title of the web page. So I want to get the title of the web page. So for example, so let me open this application. I want to verify the title of the page is correct or not. So how we can verify that? First of all, we need to capture the actual title of the page. And then I can compare the same title with my expected title. But where we can see that actual title on this page, if I just right click on the page and inspect this page, and here in the header tag, you can see the title tag. In the header, you can see the title tag. So this title will be the different from one page to another page. So each page is having a unique title. So this is the actual title of the page. So now I want to capture this title of this particular page. So for that, we use one more command called driver.title. So driver.title. So this will give you the current title of the page or title of the current web page. So how we can print it? We can just simply print, or we can store the title in a string variable. Later you can compare it. So this will return the title of the current web page. And suppose I want to verify this application's URL is correctly open or not. So as soon as you specify this URL, the same URL should be open on the application. So I just want to verify this URL is correct or not. So randomly or dynamically at the runtime, I want to capture this URL. So who will give this URL? There is one more command called current URL. Simply say driver.current_URL. So this will give you the current URL of the application so that you can print it. So later on, I'll show you how to use all these things to perform certain number of validations on the web page. So first we'll see how to capture them. So driver.title, title is one command, and current_URL is another command, which will return the current URL of the web page. And these are actually variables which we can access through driver instance. And first let us execute these commands. And after that, I just want to close my browser. For that, I can say driver.quit or driver.close you can use. Let us try to execute now. Yeah, so it is giving some error. Now, what is an error it is giving? Webdriver.chrome service object. And this statement is giving error. Let's see, is there any mistake here? Service C colon, this is a actual path. Driver equal to webdriver.chrome service object. So here we have to specify the variable, right? So I say service equal to service object, right? So that's the syntax. So we should not just pass only object. We have to specify the variable service equal to service_object. Now let us execute. Now it is launched my web browser and launch your application. Then as soon as you capture the data from the page, it is automatically closed because we use quit command, right? It is automatically closed. Now you can just look at here. This is actual title of the page, which is written by this particular statement. And driver.current URL, this is a statement which is written the current application URL or current app URL. And similarly, we also have one more command called driver.page_source. Page_source. Basically, this command will give you the source of the page. What is the source of the page? If I just right click on the page, go to view page source here, and this will show you the source of the page. And basically, which is the source code contains a HTML, CSS along with the JavaScript. The whole code is there inside the source page. Actually, this is a source code which is written by the web server, and the same code is presenting on the UI in the user understandable format. Actually, the server is written this one when you send this particular request. Okay, and this is just a user understandable format. In the UI format, it is displaying. So if you want to capture the source code of the web page like this, then we can use this command. So what is that command? Page underscore source. But what is the use of this command? If you want to do some validation on the source page or page source, and what we will do is we will just capture the entire source of that particular page into some variable, and we can verify something is present on the page source or not, or something is not present or not. We will verify that. So in those cases we use this, but very rarely we use this command because we don't need to do anything with the source code. But still, if you want to validate something in the HTML, basically source code is a HTML only, right? So if you want to do some validations on the HTML, then we use this command, or else not required. So this is another variable which we have. So which is return the source page content or the HTML of the particular page. So we can just execute inside the print command. So these variables just return the data, okay, or values. We need to use additionally print function to display the data. Let's execute one more time. Right, open the browser, launching the application URL, and is also closed. Now we can just look at this. This is all about HTML or the source code of the page, which is completely captured here and displayed. This is having huge code, so it is completely captured. Fine. So these are the few method or few commands which are available. We can call them as a application related commands. Webdriver application related commands. So what are those commands? Get is one method basically which is used for opening the application URL. And what is the use of this command? To capture the title of the page. You have to remember this, okay? To capture the title of the web page, of the current web page. And the third command, current URL. So which is used for to capture the current URL of the web page. And page source, which will to capture source code of the page. So these are the four commands which are comes under application related commands. Basically, these commands will get some information from the application. Basically, get will open the application, title will return the title of the application, or current URL will return the URL of the application. Similarly, page source command which will return the source code of the application. So all these commands are basically working for the application. So we can call them as a application related commands. So apart from them, so we also have a few more commands called conditional commands. Second category, conditional commands. So most important commands, listen carefully. So what are the conditional commands which we have? There are more number of conditional commands we have. So let me just list out here, then we will discuss one by one. So the first conditional command is underscore. Basically, these are all methods, okay? Is underscore displayed. This is one method. Is underscore displayed. Is underscore enabled. This is one more conditional method. Is underscore selected. Is displayed, is underscore enabled, is underscore selected. So these are the three conditional commands which we have. Is displayed, is enabled, is selected. And when we use these commands, especially for checking the status of the element. For example, I want to check the element is present on the page or not. Suppose I want to enter some text in the input box. Before entering the text, I want to check whether the input box is first of all available or not on the web page, which is displayed or not. For that, I can use this method. So what this method will do, this particular method will check particular element is present on the web page or not. And if it is available or if it is displayed, then this method will return true. That's a Boolean value. If that element is not available on the page, then it returns false. Similarly, the next method is enabled. If the element is enabled, then returns true. If it is not enabled, return false. So what is enabled and disabled status means? Sometimes element will be there, but you cannot perform any action on the element. Suppose you can see some input box, but you cannot enter any value. It is not allowed you to enter any value in the input box. So that is basically called as a disable mode. So if it is enabled, then we can do some action on the element. If it is a disable, we cannot do any action. So this particular method is_enabled method will return true if the element is enabled. And this will return false if the element is disabled state. And is selected especially used for radio buttons and checkboxes, because in the radio buttons you can see multiple radio buttons. As soon as you selected some radio button, like before selecting the radio button, if you use this method, it will return false. But after selecting the radio button, if I use the same method again on the same radio button, it will return true. Basically, this particular method will check that radio button is selected or not. If it is already selected, returns true. If it is not selected, return false. Similarly, same thing for checkbox also. You can have multiple checkboxes. And if the checkbox is already selected, returns true. If checkbox is not selected, return false. So especially this particular command will use for radio buttons and checkboxes. But rest of the two commands we can use for any kind of element. It can be radio button, checkbox, input box, image, link, whatever element you want to check, whether it is displayed or not, you can use the first method, is_displayed. Or if you want to check the element is enabled or not, then you can use is_enabled. And if the checkbox is already selected or not, you can check, or if the radio button is selected or not, you can verify by using is_selected method. So basically these three commands are returning a true or false, because they are checking the condition, whether they displayed or not, enabled or not, selected or not, the condition based methods. So we can call them as a conditional methods. Now we'll see practically how we can use this conditional methods. Along with them, I will also show you how to interact with the checkboxes and also input box and different type of elements. So go back to the PyChamp and let's create one more Python file. And I'll name it as conditional commands. Okay, so conditional commands. So let me just copy this code from the previous example. So let me just launch my application. I say driver.get. So here I'm using one application called nocommerce.com registration page. So in this page, you can see different type of elements, right? So you can see two radio buttons, you can see some input boxes and so on. There is one checkbox. So multiple elements you can see here. So first of all, let us start with two methods, is displayed and is enabled. And then I will discuss about is selected. Okay, so let's go back to the application, copy this URL and put it in the double quotations. So as soon as the URL is open, then I'll try to maximize the browser window. How to maximize? driver.maximize_window. So this will maximize the page, right? So once you maximize the page, now the first command is what? is_displayed. This is one method, and the other one is is_enabled. Is_enabled. Now we'll see how to work with these commands. Is_displayed, is_enabled. So in this particular page, okay, so in this particular page, I have a small search box here. And there is search button also there. So basically, or you can just take any other element, no problem. So let me just take the search store here. So I want to check this particular element is displayed in this page or not. I want to check this element is present here or not. So how we can do that? First of all, we need to identify that element. So first inspect this element, and you can just use a crow path, or if you want to write any XPath locator, you can write it. So in this, you can see selector hub is suggesting all the different type of locators here, because this option is recently again enabled. So these options are all the locators are displayed here. So you can just take one of the XPath like this. So let me use this XPath and find that element. driver.find_element by.xpath in singular double quotation, specify it, because I put in the double quotation here. right? So by also we need to import from Selenium WebDriver commas by. So now this will able to find that element, right? So you can just store that element in a variable. I'll name it as search box. So now I capture that element inside this variable, right? Now what this variable contain? So this variable contains a web element. Whatever the web element this statement is pointing, and that web element will be captured into this variable, right? So now we need to check which is available or not. So take this variable or web element dot. Now we can access that method. How to access? Is, you can just type is, automatically conditional methods will be displayed. Is underscore. Now you can see is underscore selected, is underscore enabled, is underscore display. 3 methods are displayed. So is displayed I'm taking, is underscore display. So where these methods are available? So these 3 methods all belongs to web element. Okay, and these commands we can access only through driver instance. But these methods we can access through web element, not from the driver. We should not say driver.is display, driver.enable. No, these methods we can access only through web element. So this particular command is return the web element, store in this variable. Then I'm checking whether this displayed or not. So what this method will return, true or false. So let's just print that value. Print search box dot is displayed. All right, so it should display true or false. I can just write some message also. You can just in double quotation, I say display status, comma. And similarly, I want to verify the enable status. Okay, it is displayed fine, but whether it is enable or not. Enable means what? It should allow us to pass some value here like this. Then we can say this is a enable state. So I want to verify this is enable state or not, the same element. So what I can do is I can just copy the same statement. Because it is the same element, we can just copy the same element, and instead of is displayed, I can say is enabled. Is enabled. This is a enable status. This is enable status. Now we verified is displayed or not, is enabled or not. So both will return either true or false, depends upon the status of the element. Okay, now after that, I'm just trying to close my browser, or we can just quit from the browser. Okay, it went very faster. So let me just run one more time. Yeah, now it is my browser launching your application. So immediately it is captured the status of the elements closed. Now the display status is true, enable status is also true, because by default they are displayed, and also it is enabled state. Sometimes in your application, your element may not be displayed properly. So then it returns false. Suppose even the element is available, sometimes it may not be enabled state. In that case, you will say false. So these commands are especially used for validation purpose at the element level. Okay, so these are the 2 commands which we can use it for any kind of elements we can use, like is displayed or is enabled or not. Now the third command is selected, is underscore selected. And this is also a conditional command, especially we use it for radio buttons and checkboxes. Whether they are selected or not, we can check it. So only for radio buttons and checkboxes, we can use this command. So for radio buttons and checkboxes. Now we'll see how we can work with this command. If I just look at this page. Okay, so here I have few elements, and here you can see gender element, male and female. So these 2 are the radio buttons. So by default, when I launch my application, none of them are selected. So male and female, none of them are selected, right? So what I will do is, let us capture the status of these 2 elements, like whether selected or not, I want to verify. So for that, what I will do is, first we need to capture these 2 elements, radio buttons we have to capture. So how to capture these radio buttons? Again, right click and inspect. And you can see, go to selector hub again. So this is a XPath which is generated for male radio button. copy this XPath, or you can write your own XPath here. Go back and try to get that element. Driver.find element. You can use any locator. Okay. Most of the times I use only XPath. So find underscore element by.xpath. And this is my XPath. And this is a mail radio button. So I can say RD radio button underscore mail. So I captured one radio button. And similarly, let us try to capture the second one. This is a female radio button. So to copy this, you can just click on the relative XPath here, automatically copied here. Go back and write one more statement. Driver dot find element, again by dot XPath with double quotations, copy the XPath. So this is another element, RD underscore, I say female. So now I capture the two elements, two radio buttons, but by default, none of them are selected, male and female. Okay, no one is selected here. So when I see the status, take this first element, dot is selected, and just print the status. Let me say here, print. Okay, so, okay, just print the default values. Okay, so this will print one thing, and then check the status of the second one also. Instead of RD underscore male, I'll say RD underscore female. So basically what I'm doing here, I've just captured the two radio buttons as an elements. Now I'm checking the status of the first element here, is selected or not, and also checking the status of the second radio button, right? Let's execute and see now. So the default, by default, they have not selected. So what we are expecting is both should return false. Okay, now it is executed very faster. Let me run one more time. Yeah, it is launching my browser application. Yeah, closed. Now you can see both are returning false. So this is our expected because none of them are selected. So this is false and this is also false. Fine. But now what I will do is I'll just go and select one of the radio button. Let's go and select the first one. So let me just go and open the browser application. Right. So now I want to just select the first radio button. How to select the first radio button? How to select it? Radio button. If you want to select, what you can do is take this radio button element dot click. Just click. Okay, so this will automatically select the radio button. So here it will select male radio button. So after selection of radio button, what I will do is I will again capture the statuses of the both elements. So here I will write something like after selecting male radio button. Okay. And here what we are expecting after selecting male radio button. So I'm printing the status here. We can say I'll write one more statement or else. Okay, so let's print this one. After selecting the radio button, I'll write one print statement. Print like this. So after selecting the radio, here already selected. After selecting the radio button, male radio button. So again, if I check the status, it should return true, right? They should return true because we already selected here. But what about the female radio button? So that should not selected because at a time we can select only one radio button. If I select only male radio button, still female is still false. Now we'll check these two statuses correct or not. So these two are before selecting and after selecting. Let me write one more statement also here. So default statuses, I say default radio buttons status. So default radio buttons status. And after selecting the male radio button, again, we are checking here. Let's run one more time. Yeah. So now by default, none of them are selected. So false and false. But after selecting the main reader button, what happened? The first reader button status should be becomes true, and now second one is still false. Okay. Now let us select the second reader button now. So here instead of first reader button, I'm taking the second reader button and perform the click action. Now the results will be reverse. So now after selecting the female reader button, what happens? The first reader button status become again disabled, right? It will not select it. So here after selecting female reader button, now this should become false and this should become true. Let's execute now again. All right, so now we can just look at here. The default status is both false. And then after selecting the first male reader button, the first one becomes true, second one is still false. Now, after selecting the female reader button, the first one becomes false, second one becomes a true. So like this, we can just verify the status, like whether they are selected or not. We can verify. Similarly, we can also check whether they are displayed or not, enabled or not. So these commands work for all kinds of elements. Is displayed, is enabled. We can still use it for radio button checkboxes. But is selected is a method which mostly used for checkboxes and the radio buttons, whether the select status is selected or not, which is already selected or not. Okay, so these three all comes under conditional commands, or we can say conditional methods in Selenium WebDriver. Okay, so this is a one category. So we have seen two types of commands, so for application commands, conditional commands. The next category is browser commands. Only two commands are there. So what are those browser commands? Close and quit. Close and quit. So both are not exactly the same. There is a difference. I'll tell you. Close, quit. So these two commands are called browser commands, not application commands. Application is different. A browser is different. Okay. Once you open the browser, then we can open the application on the browser. So these commands works on the browser level, but these commands works only if you open the application. Okay. So remember the difference between this one and this one. So now we'll see how to work with the browser commands, close and quit. Most important, listen this carefully. In interview, people will ask the question, what is the difference between close and quit? Okay. So for that, I'm just going to show you one simple example. Go back to the PyChamp. Close this example. Let's create one more file. I'll name it as browser commands. Okay, so here I'm just importing stuff from my previous example, like just copying this. Okay, now let's launch our application. So before that, let me show you that application. Go back to the browser. And this is the URL of application. So look at this carefully. So in this application, this is the current application which I have opened on my browser, right? So when you do click option in this link, so when I do click action on this link, you can see some bottom, there is a link called R in HRM link, right? So when you do click on this link, it is opening another tab in the same browser. So this is another page or another URL. You can simply say totally is a first one, second one is having a different URL. So now how many applications are open? There are two applications are open on the browser. So you can consider this is one browser, this is another browser. Okay. Now let us see the difference between close and quit. What close will do, what quit will do. Because if you have only one single browser like this, both works in the similar way. What they will do is basically close command or close method will close your browser. Similarly, quit also will do the same thing. Quit command will quit from the browser. But internally, there is another difference is there. The close command will simply close your browser, but still the browser specific process will keep on running in the backend. That process will not be killed. But in every process in Windows or Unix or Mac, in any operating system, if you start some application, there will be some process will be created internally. Okay. And when I use a close command, you can just close the browser, but still that process keep on running. That process will not be killed. but it will close a single browser. But when you use quit command, which will also close your browser along with the process also automatically killed. So there's a one difference. The second difference is close command will close only one browser at a time. But when I use quit command, which will close all the browser. If you have 10 browsers are open, all 10 browsers will be closed by quit command. So they are the differences between close and quit commands. Now let us see practically how they work. So here, first of all, I'm launching my application. I say driver.get and go to the application. Let me copy this URL. So this is my application. And as soon as I open the application, I just want to maximize it. How to maximize? Driver.maximize_window. And then I want to perform the click action on this link. Inspect this element. And in the selector hub, you can see multiple locators here. So let's go with the link text or partial link text, whatever. So I'm just taking the link text. And here I say driver.find_element by dot. What is the locator we have to take? Link text. But it is not suggesting anything here. Why it is not suggesting? Because we haven't imported by class. So we have to import that first. Let me import the by also. Okay. Now you can just look at it. By dot. So link text I'm using. So link_text, comma. In the double quote or single quotations, we have to specify the link text. This is our link text. So this element we found and then perform the click action directly on the link. So what this statement will use, what this statement will do, this statement will perform the click action on this link. Then automatically one more browser window is open. So now currently how many browser windows we have? The first one and the second one, right? Now I'll use one command called driver.close. Now see the difference. I say driver.close. Okay, I say only driver.close. Just observe this. And what I will do is as soon as I click on this link, immediately the page will open and close. So you cannot see the difference. So after clicking on this link, I just want to wait some time here. I want to pause my script for some time and then I will do this action. So if you want to pause your script for some time, you can use one command from Python that is called time. Okay, time is a module which is there in predefined in Python. So time dot, you can use a sleep command. Here you can specify the time in seconds. Just I want to wait for 5 seconds. You can say 5 seconds. So it is just additional command I'm giving you because it will go very faster. As soon as you click this, it will immediately close the browser. So you cannot see whether it's open or not. So just I want to show you the pages are open or not. Then which place it is closing, that we want to show you. So that's the reason I'm just putting wait time here. Okay, in Java we have a thread.sleep. So it is also similar to that command in Python. So let's execute now and observe carefully. Now we can just look at here. It is launching my browser, opening the application. This is the first application we opened. Immediately it is also opening the second browser, and observe this carefully. Now the first one is automatically closed, but second one is still open. Second one is still open. The first one, whichever the URL we have opened, this is got closed. But after clicking on this link, what is a new application or new browser is open, that is still available. So that means what we need to understand here, what we should understand here is which page is closed. We can just consider as this is a parent browser, or after clicking on this link, whatever application or browser is open, we can call it as a child window. For now, I can call it as a parent browser window. I can call it as a child browser window. So which one is closed? It is closed parent browser window. That means whatever applications at the beginning we have opened, that is got closed. But whatever application newly opened by this link, which is not still closed. What does that mean? The close method is closed the application whichever we opened at the beginning. That means our driver is basically focused on the previous browser or previous application. So even though this statement is open the another application or another browser, still our driver focus is on the first application. It's not directly shifted to the second application. So our driver, whichever browser application or whichever browser window, our driver is focused. So that particular browser window will be closed. So that's what we need to understand here. The close command always close only one browser at a time. So we have opened two browsers, but it is not closed both. It is just closed only one browser window. That's the first thing. Second thing is what? Which one it is closed? The parent window. So that means wherever or whichever browser window the driver is focused, and that particular browser window only closed, and the other browser windows still open. Even if you have opened 10 browser windows, it cannot close all 10. And either at least one page will be there, one browser window will be there where your driver is focused. So that browser window only will be closed. So that's we need to understand by close command. Okay, so what is the use of close method or close command? Close single browser window. Close single browser window. And again, condition applied. What is the condition? The driver should focus. Whichever browser the driver is focused, and that particular browser will be closed. So close single browser window where driver focused. You will understand in detail what is driver focused and all these things in the next examples. Okay, don't worry. So for now, just understand in whichever application we are opening at the beginning, still our driver is pointing to that application. It cannot shift to the new application which is opened by this link. Just understand only this much for now. Okay, in the coming sessions I will show you one more scenario, what is browser window, what is that, and then you will understand clearly. Okay, now this is a close command, guys. So this is a one command, close single browser window at a time where the driver is focused. Now what about the quit command? And instead of close, I'm trying to use a quit command. Driver.quit. Driver.quit. Now observe this. Same thing, instead of just close command, I'm using driver.quit. Execute. See this, currently the two pages are there. First page and second page. You can see the tabs also. Now both are closed. This time both are closed. So that means what? Quit command will close multiple browser windows. Multiple browser windows. But this is the actual difference we can see as a user at the front end. But internally what exactly happening is, each browser window, as soon as you initialize a process or as soon as you start some process, there will be process ID will be created or some process will be created by the operating system. For example, when you launch your browser like this, there will be process created by the operating system. Similarly, when you open another tab also, that is also another process. And when you open another tab, this is also another process. So for every action, the windows will be created a process, which will consider as a process. Now in the close command, what happens? It is simply closing the browser. So when I open this one, I open application, so which will close the browser, but still the process internally runs, which will not kill the process. That's the reason it is able to do only one single browser. But in the quit command, what exactly doing is, whatever the driver we initiated here, Chrome driver, it is killing the process which is related to this driver. So that means the entire browser operations works based on this driver only, right? So what quit is doing basically, quit is not directly closing the browsers. Quit is not directly closing the browser. It is internally killing the process of Chrome browser, basically killing the process of Chrome driver. That's automatically close all Chrome driver processes. Whichever the Chrome browsers launched through your automation script, and those browsers automatically closed because it is internally killing the driver process, not directly on the application. So that is a hidden difference actually, which we cannot see physically, but quit command will basically kill the driver process itself. So that's the reason which is able to kill all, which is able to close all the browsers. As a user, we can see just it is closing my browsers. But what exactly happening internally is, it is basically killing the driver. It is killing the driver. Okay. So remember that, most important. So close command close single browser window at a time, whereas quit command close multiple browsers windows. And in addition, this will kill the process. Okay, so these are the differences between browser commands, close and quit command. And here everybody will know this. So if anyone asks an interview, people will answer these two questions: what is close, what is quit, what is the difference? And close command will close single browser at a time, quit command will close multiple browsers. But there will be another scenario. For example, I have multiple browser windows like this. I have 10 browser windows. I want to close specific browser windows based upon our choice. That's my requirement. Let us say I have 5 different browser windows. Let's say I have 1, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5 browser windows I have open. But when I use a close command, what happens? First time, whenever whichever browser we open, only that one will close, or whichever browser window our driver is focused, only that particular browser window will be closed. Only single browser will be closed. But when I use a quit command, what happens? It will close all the browsers. It will close all the browser windows. But my requirement is I want to close only specific browser windows. I want to close on 2nd and 4th. Or I want to close only 1st and 3rd. I want to close only 4 and 5. How is this possible? So this is also possible by using another commands. Window handle commands are there. So when I discussing about those commands, then I will tell you how you can handle this scenario. Okay, till then, just remember this, which is also most important entry question. Okay, because we have a separate session for this, how to work with the multiple browser windows. So this concept is related to that. So I'll explain it that time. For now, I'm just skipping this. So understand what is the difference between close and quit. Okay. Now, so far, how many commands we discussed? How many categories we discussed? 3 categories, right? Application commands, conditional commands, and browser commands. And the next one is navigational commands. Navigational commands. How to work with the navigational commands. It is also very simple and very easy. So normally, when you open any application, so let me show you. Suppose here, I open one application. Let us say I just want to open. Just notice, observe how I'm doing. Snapdeal.com. So this is the application I have opened here. This is one browser window, right? So in the same browser window, I'm just replacing this URL with the Amazon.com. Same browser window again. Now I want to see my previous application. So do I need to again type the URL here? Not required, right? So I can just click on this arrow mark, then it will go back to my previous application. How it is happened like this? How it is happened like this? Because the first time when you open this URL, our browser is remembering this. Remember this. And after remembering, again, when I open second URL, again, secondary URL also it is remembered. So if I use this arrow keys like this, go back, you will get the previous application. If I just click on this forward arrow, you will get the Amazon.in. So first time when you open any 2 applications like this, you can navigate between these 2 applications by just clicking on this arrow marks. And what is the use of these 2 arrow marks? Just for navigation purpose. And this is another option, which is reloading the page. If you want to reload, you just click on it. The page will be reloaded or page will be refreshed. The same operations we can do through automation script by using navigational commands. Okay. Now I'll show you how to use navigational commands to perform these operations. Let's go back. The next type of commands are navigational commands. So what are the navigational commands, or we can say navigational methods are available? And only 3 methods are there. One is called back, one is for forward, and refresh. These are the 3 methods which comes under navigational commands. Again, these 3 commands we can directly access through driver instance. Okay, we can access these commands directly through driver instance. Now let us see how we can use them practically. Go back to PyChamp, close it, and I will create another Python file. All right, so I'll name it as Navigational Commands. All right, so now let us import the WebDriver module, service module, buy module, and everything. Also, I'll copy the service object. All right, so now let us open one application first. Okay, so I say driver.get, and here I'm just trying to open. You can use any web applications, any URLs are fine. So not only this, I'm just taking some samples. So this is one application I'm trying to open first time. And the second time, immediately on the same browser window, I say driver.get. I'm opening another application like this. So now what happens is first time opens the browser and snapdeal.com application will be open. On the same browser window, the second URL also will be open. It is basically replaced with this one. This is replaced with the new application. Okay, let's run these two commands first. Run navigational commands. You can just observe here. First, snapdeal.com is open. On the same browser window, amazon.com is open. Right now, we are in amazon.com page. Now I need to go back to my Snapdeal page. I just navigate to previous page. Instead of typing this statement again, because browser is already remembered, so we no need to type this command one more time. Simply we can say driver.back. So this will automatically go to the Snapdeal page. So this will go to Snapdeal page. Now again I want to move forward, or I want to forward to amazon.com. Then simply driver.forward. Driver.forward. We are not specifying the URLs here. We just, once you already opened them, so we just navigating backward and forward. So here this will go to amazon.com. And if you want to reload the page, or if you want to refresh the page, simply you can say driver.refresh. So this will automatically reload the page. Okay, so this is how we can use. So let me just execute. And finally, I want to quit my browser also. I say driver.quit, because I want to close all browsers. At a time, it will open only one browser window, but the process will be created for both, because this is another application, this is another application. Even browser also remember two URLs. So it is better to quit the process. So I say driver.quit. Now execute. So launching my first application, snapdeal.com, and then amazon.com, then go back. Now again, move forward, and then finally refreshing the page, and browser is closed. So these navigations we can control through our automation script. So these commands comes under navigational commands. Only 3 commands. It's very easy to remember also. Once you start using, or once you start practicing, you can easily remember them. Back, forward, refresh. So how we can access these methods? We can access them through driver instance directly. And close and quit also we can directly access through driver instance. And application commands also we can directly access through driver instance. Only the conditional commands we can access only through web element. Remember this. Okay, only through web element we can access this command, and rest of the commands we can access only through driver instance. Okay, so these are the 4 types of application commands: conditional commands, browser commands, navigational commands. So before discussing the wait commands, I want to discuss two more important concepts, like find element and find elements. What are the differences between find element and find elements? There's one topic I'm just going to discuss one. Second thing is how to capture the text from the element. Okay, and in the next session we will discuss about wait commands, because this is having another 3 types of wait commands we will discuss in detail. But before that, let me just cover 2 more important topics, very important for especially for interview. Okay, you need to understand this. So far we have used find element. Also we have seen how to use find elements. And if I ask the difference between find element and find elements, straightforward answer is find element method will return single web element, and find elements is a method which will return multiple web elements. So apart from these two, is there any other differences between the find element and find elements? That we will discuss now. Okay, so let's go to PyChamp. I'll take one example and show you what are the other differences between find element and find elements. We have to have a clarity on this. Find underscore element. This is one method which we have. Another one is find underscore elements. So both will take locator as an argument, right? So locator, it's XPath, linked test, whatever it is. So both will take the locator as an argument, but find element, find elements. See the differences. Go back to the PyChamp and create one more example. Most important in interview, so listen carefully. Find element versus find elements. Find element versus find elements. Okay, so let me just copy some piece of code here. Importing Webdriver service by class and location of my driver service object is created. Now, so let me just open some application here. Go back to the browser. This is the application URL. So let me open this through automation script. So this is my application URL. Go back. I say driver.get, launching my application. This is my application, right? So now, as soon as you launch my application, so first let us see the find element. Okay, what are the different things are available for find element? Find underscore element is a method. Find element. Okay. So what is the basic understanding we have so far on find element? Returns a single web element, right? That is always true. So returns single web element at any cost. It can take single locator or multiple locator, doesn't matter. Finally, it will return only single web element. Remember that point. Return single web element. Always return single web element. Now, let me just show you three different scenarios. What are they? In the find element method, I will pass the locator, which is also pointing to single web element. That is one scenario. Second scenario is I'll use a find element method in which I will pass the locator, which is pointing to multiple web elements. Scenario 3, I'll use a find element method in which I will pass the locator of the element, which is not available on the web page. Then how find element method will react. Okay, these are the three different scenarios I will show you for the find element method and find elements method. Then you can see other differences between find element and find elements. Okay, so first let us start with a known difference, which is find element return a single element, find elements will return multiple web elements. So forget about find elements for now. Let us see the three scenarios for find element. Okay, what is the first scenario is locator matching with the single web element. Locator matching with the single web element. Now go back to this application. Let me search the search store and get the element. So this is the element which is pointing to single web element. Remember this, you can just look at here. It is pointing to single web element. The locator is pointing to single web element. So I'm saying driver dot find underscore element by dot XPath with double quotations XPath I have written. So find element is a method, and even locator also pointing to single web element. Now I'm storing that web element in a variable. I'll say element. I will say element. Now this is a single web element, so that we can directly perform the action element dot send keys I can access. Because if it is a single web element, then only you will get the send keys method enabled here. Because the element is a variable which contains a web element. So that's the reason, as I said, element dot automatically send keys method is enabled here. This is just a variable. Okay, you can just simply say xyz, whatever you can give it, just a variable name. Don't confuse when I say element here. Okay, it's just a variable name, and which contains the web elements. So because it is a web element, we can perform the action directly. So it is enabled send keys method. So we can happily pass some value in it. So I can just pass some value here, Apple MacBook Pro 13-inch. So I can just pass some value. This is perfectly fine, right? So let's execute and see. Because we are using find element and locator is also pointing to single web element. So no problem in that. Now you can see it is identified this element and also it is passed the value. This is one scenario. This we already know it. We have find the element with the single locator and return the web element, and we can directly perform the action. Now look at the second scenario. The locator matching with the multiple elements. Suppose this locator is matching with the multiple web element, then what happens? Okay, let me just comment these statements. If the locator is matching with the multiple web elements, then what happens? So what I will do is, from this application, I want to capture the multiple web elements. I just want to write one XPath which will capture multiple web elements. So let me open this application. In this, if I just come down to this page, there are so many links are available. So these are all footer links. You can call them as a footer links. And I don't want to capture all the links in the page. I just want to capture the links only from the footer section. I want to just capture the links only from the footer section, like information links, customer service link, my account link, and followers links. How we can do that? Inspect this only footer section. Inspect only footer section. Just identify like this. Okay, only footer section. And if I just look at this, and it is basically highlighting this line, just little go up like this. And you can see class equal to footer, you can see, right? So this is a division tag is there, class equal to footer. So when I highlighting this line, it is automatically highlighting entire footer section, right? Again, inside this, there are two divs are there. Again, in the first division, again, so many divs are there. You can see, as soon as I'm highlighting each division, it is highlighting a specific section in the footer on the web page. That means what? If I open the first division, there are another divisions are there again. If I go to this division, again, strong is there. That is actually heading part information. And if I expand the UL, again, there are so many li tags here. And basically all these are links, right? All these are links. So if I just look at very high level, inside the footer, only we want to capture all the links. So do we need to really go through each and every individual tags and finally capture the links? Because I want to capture all the links, not a specific link, right? So what we can do here is we can just write a simple customized XPath. I'll show you how to do this. I say // division. I'm just writing the XPath till here. Div class equal to footer. Okay, div. And inside this, I say @class. I'm using attribute called class. What is the value of the class? Footer section. So just execute this XPath, finding one element. What is this one element? The footer section itself is one element. Now inside the footer section, I want to access all the links. And I can use direct XPath, relative XPath, because // will directly jump into the anchor tags. Right, so we can just keep the middle of element. Middle, there is so many divs are UL tags are there. Inside the UL, again, list items are there. So many things are there, but we don't need all those things. We just want only links from the footer section. So first we went to the footer section by using this XPath, then directly jump into the anchor tags. So now we can just observe 23 links are identified. 23 links are exactly links only identifying here on the footer section. Right? So this is how we can just customize our XPath. Now, this XPath is exactly pointing to multiple web elements. Each link is a web element, right? Now remember that point. This XPath is pointing to multiple web elements. Now I'm going back and write the locator. So still I'm writing the find element only. Okay, driver.find element by .xpath and specify that XPath. Now this particular statement will return single web element or multiple web element. So the locator is pointing to multiple web elements. But outside, what is the method we used? Find element. So how it works now? So this is going to return first element. Among, suppose let us assume this is returning multiple web elements. How many elements is written? Basically, it is written almost 23 elements. Among 23 elements, whichever the first element we have here, sitemap, that element will be returned because we use only find element. Only one element will be returned, right? So that I can store here. Element. Can we perform the action on that element or not? We can easily perform the action. So I want to get the text of this element. I want to know what is that element which is captured by this find element. How we will know that? Just element.text method. We can use text. So if you want to capture the text of any element, you can use a text element.text. Similarly, if every text box, every link, every button is having some name, some label on that, if you want to capture it, you can just use text element.text. So let us print that value. I say print element.text. So this will print you the first element, which is, it is not printing the element. Remember guys, most of the people will do mistake here. Element is a kind of an object. We cannot print that object. Object contains again multiple variables, multiple methods. Object is an entity which contains a lot of things. So if we cannot directly print the object, but we cannot extract the values of the object. We can call the method from the object. So if you consider this element is an object, element is a web element object, we are extracting the text value of that object. Okay, we should not print element directly. We have to call a method from that object so that we will get the text value of that object. Let's try to execute this. I hope you understand this one and this one, because in the first scenario, we have passed locator, which is pointing to single web element. So anyway, it will return the one single web element. We perform the action. In the second scenario, we are passing the locator, which is pointing to multiple web elements, but still it is returning one web element because we used find element. Because we got the one element, we can directly perform the action. Let's run and see here. So now we can just look at here. What is an output we got here? We just printed sitemap. This statement is printed that. So why it is printed only the text of the first link in the footer page? Because it is returning only one web element. Even though we pass the locator, which is matching with the multiple web elements, still finally it is identified only one single web element, so that we got the text value of the one single web element. I hope everybody is clear here. Okay. Now, so this is basically printed first link from the footer, which is a sitemap. Okay. Now I'll show you third scenario. This is more interesting. Third scenario. In the third scenario is what? Suppose I am using find element. I have written one locator here. Maybe it is a the locator may pointing to single element or multiple element, doesn't matter. But suppose that element is not available on the web page. If the element is not available on the web page, then what happens? Find element method will return the exception. No such element exception. Okay. So if the element is not found, then find element method will return no such element exception. No such element. It's not depending on the locator. You can use locator which is pointing to single web element, or you can use locator which is pointing to multiple web elements. It doesn't matter. Finally, if this locator is not able to find any web element or web elements on the web page, then find element will return no such element exception. No such element exception. Let me show you one example here. So let me just try to identify this login link. Okay, inspect this link. Login. Go to select our hub. So this is a login. I'm just using this as a link text. Okay, copy this. Find that element. driver dot find element, find underscore element by dot XPath. Sorry, it is not an XPath, right? It's a linked text. Dot link underscore text and passing the link text. Is it correct value or not? This is a correct locator only, right? And I'm storing that in a variable like element. I'm storing that element also in a variable. I can call it as a login underscore element. Now, what I will do is I can perform some action on this, or else no problem. You can just leave for now. So what I can do is, if you want to perform, or if you want to perform click action on this, you can just take this element, perform dot click method. You can use, like say, login underscore element dot click. Fine. Now understand this. So this is perfectly fine, right? When I execute this, you don't see any issue. It will identify one element, it will return that element, and also perform the click action on the login link. So as soon as you click on the login link, now you can see here, it is opens the login page here. But suppose I'm giving some incorrect locator, I'm removing this in. Now the locator is incorrect. So with this locator, there is no element available on the web page. Now what find element will do? Find element will return no such element exception. So remember guys, in interview people may ask you this kind of questions. So when you will get the no such element exception, or the find element is not able to find the element, what is an exception it will throw? Then you should be able to answer that. So no such element found exception. Now it is written some exception, immediately it gets stopped. It is not clicked because it is returning some exception. Read that exception here in the console window. Go back, see this. No such element exception, no such element, unable to locate element. Which element? This is the element. It is unable to locate the element. So when the element is not available, when the locator is not matching with any of the elements on the web page, it will throw no such element exception. And this is another big difference between find elements and find element. We will see all three scenarios for find elements also. Okay, then you will be able to understand clearly. All right, so these are the three different scenarios we have seen so far, right? Now let us see the same three scenarios in the find elements also, then you will understand the differences clearly. Now we'll see find elements. So we already know find elements is a method which will return some multiple web elements, right? Multiple web elements. Now, the first scenario is what? Locator is matching with the single web element. Let's see this. I'm using find elements method, but internally I will pass only one locator which is matching with one single element. Now, how it is possible? Observe this. Take the same example. Okay. In this, observe this. Instead of find element, I'm using find elements. Now, this locator is pointing to single web element. What is that element? The search box. But outside we used to find elements. So obviously it will return multiple web elements. So now this variable contains how many elements? This variable contains how many elements? For example, I say elements. I'm just giving a variable as a elements. Now observe this carefully. If this method returning single web element, then I will able to access a send keys method. See this time I'm not getting send keys method. I'm not getting send keys method. But here we got the send keys method because this is returning the single web element. So here we are not getting the send keys method because we are not getting the single web element. So how it is working now? Even though the locator is matching with the single web element, find elements method return that element. If the locator is matching multiple web elements, it will return multiple web elements. If this locator is matching with the only single locator or single web element, even that element also returned. But that is not returned as a web element, it is returned as a list item. That's the difference. It is returned as a list item because find elements method always return a list collection. Remember guys, find elements always return a list collection, whereas find element always return a web element object. List collection object is list object is different, web element object is different. So if it is written a web element object, then we will able to directly access methods, send keys. But here, this is also returning the web element, but that web element is a one of the item in the list collection. Now, what is the type of these elements? Element is a list collection. Element is a list collection. Now, how many elements are there in this elements list? How many elements are there in the elements list? Only one, because this locator is pointing to one element only, right? But how to access that element? First of all, let's see how many elements it has. For that, what you will do? Len of elements. I hope you are clear about this method. Len is a function by which we can count how many items are there in this list. So elements is a list object. Here elements is not a web element object, because find underscore elements always return the list collection or list object, but not a web element object. If it is a list object, we can count how many elements are there, right? How many items are there in the list. Same thing I'm doing here. Let's find out how many it is returning. See this, it is launching my page, and fine. So now we can see here, one it is returning. What is that one? One is a element, one web element, because this locator is pointing to only one web element. Only that element is returned as a list item, not as a web element, as a list item. So when I say len of elements, it is just saying the size, basically, how many elements are there. But what is that element I want to know? What is that element I want to know? How we will get that? So I have only one element in the elements list. How to capture that element? How to capture that elements? Elements of, we have to pass the index, right? Index, when I say 0, index always start from 0. So when I print like this, print of elements of 0 dot text. Elements of 0 is pointing to element, web element, which is available in the elements list. Got my point? Let me just give the clarity now. So find elements method here, which is written in the list, actually list collection. List means what? Collection of items. Now elements, so this is actually elements. Okay, elements is the name of the list. Now this locator is pointing to one single web element, so that element is available as a 0 element in the first place. So how to access this element now? By using element of 0. So now this is exactly pointing to the first element. Now for that element, I want to capture the text, or I want to enter the value, because it is a text box. So I can use one method, action method here. So now what I will do is I will just use send keys method, because it's a text box. Elements of 0 dot send keys method we will able to access. But here we haven't get the send keys method elements, because which is a list collection. Once you extracted the element from the list collection, then we're able to use send keys method. So here you can pass this value. This is how we need to do. One more bracket. So now in this statement, what exactly we have done? Sorry. So in this statement, what we have done? So we are not printing anything, just we want to access the element from the elements. See this. So here we have just counted how many elements this find element is returned. But here what we are doing, we are accessing the first element in the elements list and performing the action. Right? So now execute. Right. So now you can see it is entered the same value in the text box. Okay. So this is one scenario. So here what we need to understand is find elements method will not return web element, even though the locator is pointing to one single web element. It is returning the web element or web elements in the form of list. So again, if you want to retrieve them, we have to specify the index number, retrieve that web element, and then perform the action. Okay. Suppose when you pass the locator, which is matching with the multiple web elements, right? So then what happens? We'll see the next scenario. Locator matching with the multiple web elements. So I'm just copying the same thing here. Comment it. Now observe this. Same thing. Previously, this locator is pointing to one element. So we got the size is 1. This time, understand this. So this time what I will do is I will pass this locator. This is pointing to all the links in the footer page, footer links, right? But this time what is the count you will get? See, same find elements method. Previously we passed the locator which is pointing to one element. So it is returning only one. So length of elements returning only one. But this time this locator is matching with multiple web elements, multiple links. So all the links will be captured into these elements. Every link is a web element. Now, how many total links are available in the footer page? All those links will be counted and it will print here. So let's execute and see now. Okay, now it is done. Close it. Now we can see 23 links are available. That means 23 web elements are available. 23 web elements are available. I want to get the first web element. Just like this, I want to print the first web element. I want to see that. What you will do? Simply here, take this elements of 0.text. Elements of 0 is representing the first web element in this collection. And from that web element, I want to extract the text value. So when I print this, which will get the first element text value. Because 23 links are there. In the first link, whatever the text value is there, that will be returned. So now you can see sitemap is the first one. In the footer page, sitemap is the first one. Suppose I want to capture the text of all the links, all 23 links. So instead of writing this statement 23 times, just by changing index number 1, 2, 3, 4, you can do that. But if you have 2 to 3 elements in this, you can do that. Like elements of 0.text, next statement, elements of 1.text, elements.2.text, you can do like this. But if you have 30 elements, 50 elements, 100 elements, it is very difficult to write the same statement multiple times. So how we can do that now? I want to capture the text value of every element which is captured in this variable. For that, we need to write a loop statement. So comment this and let me write a loop statement for element in elements. Loop statement I'm writing. So what this statement will know from the elements, first it will take the first element into this variable. Now here just I'm printing the text of that element. In the second round of execution, it captured another element into this variable and then print the text. Again, third round, fourth round. So this loop will repeat 23 times and it will capture the text from all 23 elements. Let's execute now. So this time you will get the link text for all 23 links. Yes. Now we can just look at this. So first one is a sitemap. From here it is started. So these are all the link text which are available in the footer page. So this is how just by writing simple for loop, we can extract all the text values of every web element. This is the second scenario. So find elements with a single locator, a locator which is matching with a single element. Find elements with the locator which is matching with the multiple web elements. Just only one difference we need to understand. Find elements, even though it is matching with the single element, that it is also part of the list, but it is not a web element. Now, third scenario. What is the third scenario? Locator matching with the element is not available. Then what happens? In case of find element, it is thrown no such element exception. But in case of find elements, it will not throw any exception. It will not throw any error. It will not throw any exception. Just simply return nothing. So let me just show you this same thing for find elements. Element not available. Then what happens? So let me just say log here. Find elements I'm using. Okay, and now removing this. See this, I'm just opening this page and I'm getting this into login_web here itself, which will throw exception actually in case of find element. But in case of find element, it will not throw any exception, first of all. And basically find elements method will return elements in the list collection, right? So let me just take elements variable and find out the length here, length of elements. and see how many elements it will return. I say elements returned. Elements returned. See, if it is really capture the elements, it will show you some number, how many elements are captured, right? And if it is not captured, suppose if the locator is not matching with any of the elements, in that case, it will not throw anything here. He will not get any output here. Let us execute and see. Here, this is another bigger difference between find element and find elements. See this, whatever locator I have mentioned, which is not matching with any of the elements. So it is saying simply zero elements, but it is not thrown any exception. Not available, simply 0 will be returned. 0 will be returned, but it is not thrown any exception. But in case, because why it is 0? Because this list contains 0 items. If the element is not available on the page, if the find elements method is not able to find the elements or element by using this locator, by default, the list is having 0, right? No elements. If there are no elements in the list, by default, the 0 is there. So the same thing it is printing. So length of elements is 0. So what is another difference here? In case of find element, which is returning no such element exception. But find elements will not return any exception. That is another difference. Okay. So these are the differences between find element and find elements. Remember guys, find element return one web element at a time. Find elements method return multiple web elements in the form of list. In the form of list. Again, we have to extract each and every web element from the list. Another difference. So in the find element, return no such exception if the element is not found. But find elements method will not return any exception even though the elements are not found in the web page. Okay. So this is all about find elements and find element. Okay. So now we'll see one more small topic. The difference between, so far we have seen how to work with the text, right? What is the text here? It will just get the value or text of the element. So if you want to extract the text of the element, we use element name dot text. Many places we have used here, right? So we have another method also there called get text. Okay, or not get text, get attribute value. So let me just tell what exactly it is. Text versus get underscore attribute of value. Most of the people will have confusion on this. Let me just explain. So far we haven't discussed about this get underscore attribute of value. I'll tell you what is this method, and later I will compare these two, then you will understand the differences. Okay, let's go and create another example. All right, so I'll name it as text versus get attribute. Okay, so now I'm just copying some piece of code and launching this web application. So this is the application I'm launching. Let's look at here. Okay, so we have to really observe this, most important. As soon as you launch your application, so by default, this value is projecting in this input box. This is the default value, right? You can see here admin@yourstore.com. By default, this value is populating in the text box. Suppose I want to clear this value. Suppose even though if a value already available, if you want to use send keys method again, what happens is the next value will be just appended like this. That becomes a wrong email. So before entering the value, you have to clear the input box. So to clear the input box, what you will do? Take this element, use dot clear method. Okay. So after that, I'll tell you what is the text and get text method. So let me first get this element, inspect this element, and go to selector hub. And they have just giving some timestamp guys here. So within these seconds, you should capture this. Otherwise it will be go off. So take this relative X path and find that element here. driver dot find element by dot x path, specify the x path, and this is the element I just want to capture into the variable. I'll give some variable name called email box. So I hope this statement is clear to everyone. So I just finding the element, single web element, and storing the into variable. So once you get the element, you can perform the actions, right? So email box dot clear I can do. It will clear the input box. Similarly, email box dot I can use send keys method, and here you can pass anything. I say abc@gmail.com and passing. I can just pass some value here, right? So let's execute here. First clear the input box and then we pass some value in it. Yes, now you can see it is already clear and the new value is entered. Now observe the difference. Here I clear the input box and then I pass some value here, right? Here what I will do is from the same email box, I want to capture the text. Because what is the text will do? Which will basically get the value of the element, any web element. So earlier we have seen, so in the previous example, right? So in the previous example, find element method, we use the text here for the web element. Whatever web element link is captured here, we capture the text value of the link, right? So similarly, what I have done here, I capture the web element as an email box, and then I'm capturing the text value of the email box. We have cleared that email box, we pass some value. So now this value is populating on the input box. You have to remember that. This value is already populating on the input box as soon as we provided it. And after that, I'm capturing the text. So what this will print this time? We will see that. Print. So here I'm saying result of text. Result of text. Okay, input box. What you are expecting from here? What this statement will return? We already cleared it, then provided the value also. Now the input box or email box is having some value there, right? So I'm just want to get the text of that particular input box. So for that, what I have done, email box dot text I'm doing. So this will return the text of the email box and should print it here. Okay. And then I'm also trying to use one more statement here. The result of text is I'm printing here. The result of get underscore attribute is another method we have. Get underscore attribute of result of get underscore attribute. So here I'll say instead of text, I'm just saying dot get attribute method I'm using. Get attribute of value. Get attribute of value. We'll see the difference. Okay. So my intention is here, I just want to capture the text value of the element. That's my objective. I just want to capture the text value of the element. So as soon as you see this element, if I ask you what is the text value of the element, simply you say this is the text value of the element, admin_yourstore.com or abc_abc.com. So whatever email ID you are providing inside the input box, you consider that as a text. Okay. Similarly, if I ask you to what is the text of this button, if you simply say login is the text value of this button. Okay. Similarly, suppose I want to get the text value of the email box, and here I've used text variable, and here I'm using get underscore attribute of value method. Now we'll see what they will return when I run this code. So this will return two different things. See this. The new values is already added, abc_gmail.com. Now, if you observe the result, the first statement text is not returning anything. It's not written anything this time. But get underscore attribute is returned abc@gmail.com. What does it mean? This particular method is printed whatever is displayed on this element. So it is basically captured this. But this is actually text, right? But why text is not captured? Why get attribute value is captured this? Why text is not able to capture this? So you need to understand the difference between these two, most important. So what text will do, what get attribute will do. When we have to use text, when we have to use get attribute. Okay, remember this. So to understand this, we need to first go to the page. Let's go to the page. And here we have inspected this element. Let me open this another tab. So let us inspect this element. So initially, if I just look at here, this is a HTML of input, right? Input is a HTML tag. There are different attributes are there. So for this element, input element, do we have inner text somewhere here? Inner text means what? Let me tell you here. Input is my tag. Okay, suppose here, let's say ID is there, some 1, 2, 3, and the name is also there, some XYZ, and closed. Let's say email. I say some label is there, email, and here input tag is closed. Let's say this is my HTML. This is my HTML. In this, input is a tag, ID, name are the attributes and their values. This is my closing tag. What is this email here? This is called inner text. Remember, guys. So this is called as a inner text. Remember, this is a inner text which is there in this place. After closing, here input is opening, so certain number of attributes are associated with the tag, and inside this, between greater than and less than, the whatever value or text is displayed here, this is called as a inner text. Email is inner text. Okay, now based on this understanding, do we have inner text in this or not? So input tag, here you have to tell. So in this input tag, this is a starting tag. So where it is closed, here it is already closed. So in this, do we see anywhere inner text is there or not? Inner text is displaying or not? Somewhere. You can just notice here. It's not displayed. Please respond in the chat window. So here input is a tag. There are so many attributes are there. Class attribute, value is there, autofocus, type, data val, ID, name, mail, email, area invalid, then close it. But here inner text is not available. Inner text is not available. So when I use the text method, text variable, this will return only inner text of the element. Remember, guys, text will always return inner text. Text is always return inner text. Returns inner text of the element. Whichever element it is there, only inner text will be returned. But here for this element, we don't have inner text. We don't have an inner text. So that's the reason it is not returned any value here. This is empty value. Because the text we have to use only if you want to capture the inner text of that element. If the element is not having any inner text in the HTML, it simply return nothing. First point, remember this. So text is always used to get the inner text of the element. If inner text means what? This is an inner text. Most of the times links are having inner text. Links were having inner text. Suppose let me identify one link here. So in this page, do you have any links here? I think we don't have any. Let me just inspect this login. Okay, so now you can just see login inner text is there. For the login inner text is there. But if you want to capture this, you can use a text. You can use a text method. But if you don't have this inner text like input box, if I just go with the input box again, here we don't have inner text, so we cannot capture the text. Inner text is not available. So in the case of input box here, we don't have inner text here. That's the reason we have to always go with the next method called get underscore. But still, I want to capture this value. Text is not returning anything, but I want to still capture this value. Whatever email it is which is displayed on the email box, I want to capture it. Then what you would do? You can use one more method called get attribute of value. What this method will do? We understood what exactly text method will do, right? So if there is any inner text, just the text will capture the text and will display it. Simple. It can be any element. It can be radio button, checkbox, links, drop down, input box, anything. It will just go and get the inner text of the element. Simple. If the inner text is not available, returns nothing. Same thing is happened in the case of email box. Just now we have seen. But what about get underscore attribute? What get underscore attribute will do? Get underscore attribute method will use to get the value of any attribute of the element. For example, I want to get the value of ID. Then I can use get underscore attribute of ID. That will return 1, 2, 3. Suppose I want to get the value of name attribute. Simply I can say get underscore attribute of name. That will give you XYZ. Similarly, if you want to capture this email ID of this email, you can see the value attribute is there. Value attribute is there. So if you want to get this value, what I have to write now? Get underscore attribute of value. So when I say get underscore attribute value, what this will return? This will exactly return the email ID which is displayed on this element. So as soon as you change it like this, it will also change the HTML. You can see here gmail.com. See, now in the HTML automatically value will be changed. So here abc at the yourstore.com. Again, you have to inspect that element. Dynamically, it cannot change. See this, because as soon as you refresh, the new old values again come here. Okay, but dynamically you cannot do here, but through automation we can do here. As soon as we change the value here, see this. As soon as you provided the new value, when I get attribute, what happened here? It is returning the new value abc at the gmail.com. From where it got this value, from where it is returning this value? Because it is getting the value of value attribute. Because for this element, for input box element, there is a value attribute. For that, there is some value which is associated, and that is a value which is returned here. Okay, so got the difference, guys? So text is always written inner text of the element if it is available. If it is not available, returns nothing. Get attribute of value or get attribute is a method which will return the value of any attribute, not only value, which is basically returns value of any attribute of web element. If you pass ID here, ID value will be written. If I pass name here, name value will be written. If I pass class here, class value will be written. If I pass value, then value of the value will be written. Okay, so now in this particular case, in case of input box, there is no inner text, so it is returning nothing. So it is printed nothing, printed none, or you can say nothing. But it is having some value attribute which is having some email ID associated with the value. So this is printed abc_gmail.com. In case of input box, we have seen two scenarios. For input box, there is no inner text. That's the reason text is returning nothing. For the same input box, there is a value associated with that. So we will able to get that value by using get attribute. Now the same thing I will replicate for the login button. Then we will see, because the login is having inner text and there is no value attribute here, right? Now we'll see that. So let's get the login element now. Let me open another tab. I'll finish another 5 minutes. So now inspect the login element. All right, so get the XPath of the element, login element. So this is an element which is given, XPath is given. Let me use it. So I say driver dot find element by dot XPath, specify that XPath. I'm not doing anything and just get that element. I say button, get that element into a variable. I say button. Now observe this. So I say button dot text. Okay, I'm printing this button dot text, and the second one is I'm printing button dot get attribute. Which attribute value you want? So we don't have value attribute, only type is there, class is there, XPath is there. But still, even if you use value, it will not return anything because value attribute is not at all available, right? Not at all available. So let me just write simple message also. So here I say result of text, and here I'll say result of get attribute in case of button. So we have done this for input box earlier. Now we are doing for button. Okay, let's comment this. Now I capture the button element. For that I'm using text. So now what is an expected value here? Will you get a value for the text or not? Yes. Why? Because the button is having inner text here. Login is an inner text. So this time we will get the value for the text, but we will get anything for this get attribute. Previously we is the reverse. We haven't get any value for the text, but we got the value from get attribute. So now execute and see the output. Done. So now you can see here, this is a text value of the button, but you don't have value attribute for that element. So not at all there here, what value. So it is returning nothing. But instead of value, when I say some other attribute, suppose available attribute, let's say type is available. So let me just say type here. Now we'll see. Okay, now we can see here type is submit, exactly there. The same value is there in our application, exactly submit. So remember guys, so text method returns inner text of the element, whereas get attribute will return value of any attribute of the web element. Simple difference. And when we have to use the text, if I want to capture the inner text of element, then use text. And if you want to capture the value of any attribute of the web element, then go and use get attribute. And both we will able to access through web element only. Web element only we have to access this method, not from the driver instance. We should not use driver.text or driver.get attribute. No, web element.text, web element.get attribute. Okay, so remember this, most important. And I'll stop here for today's session. So far we have discussed 4 different type of commands: application commands, conditional commands, browser commands, and navigational commands. So 8 commands we will discuss in the next session. Along with them, we also discussed about difference between find element and find elements, and 3 different aspects I've shown you. And another thing is difference between text and get underscore attribute, when we have to use a text, when we have to use get underscore attribute. Okay, so practice these items for today, and tomorrow we will discuss a few more items.